So this is where we are on the series of sessions. We're on session 5 today. So we'll be looking at the data collection and some of the different methodologies for the IPPU sector. And of course, as we go along, please let me know if you have any questions. You can stop me along the way. Okay. And so we won't be going through all of the IPPU sectors today. We'll be focusing on those that are within Suriname's last greenhouse gas inventory, but we will take a look at some of the core principles and look at all of the other sectors at the surface view. And with that, I wanted to start with what are the actual sectors, what are the actual categories in the IPPU sector that was in your last greenhouse gas inventory, in your third national communications. So this is what was reported. And the lime production. And so this was actually a key category. This was 2A2. So lime production from production at an existing plant. We also had the use of lubricants, and lubricants used mostly in transportation and industrial applications, which are partly consumed during their use. And so this information was found from the National Environmental Statistics report of 2020. We had other, so this is asphalt production and use. So this is the non-energy products from fuels and other products. So non-energy product, although asphalt is a byproduct of a fossil fuel, it has a non-energy use, and so this goes under the IPP sector. And then we also had the food and beverage, which it didn't specify all of them, but we do know that you had the inclusion of breweries under the IPP sector. And I see we have a hand up, Anjali.
Yes, I would like to ask if you can, instead of asphalt, we have information on bitumen. Our state oil company produces that. Is that the same? The amount of bitumen? I don't know if I pronounce it correctly. Is that the same?
Yes, that should be the same source of activity data. Yes.
Okay. So for lubricant and other those two areas, we have updated data. We get it from the asphalt we get from state oil, and the lubricant are just the data from the trade statistics of the amount of important, not amount of use, but what is important.
Okay. So from this last report, it wasn't so clear. Well, it says here that it got from the National Environmental Statistics. So it would be good to see when you're collecting data, whether it's from your imports or customs. I'm assuming is where you'd collect
It's
this
from
data.
customs.
Okay.
It's from the environmental statistics is a report that I had sent you. It's the one that I work on it. It's just purely
Got you.
all the customs data we have here at the stats office. So,
Okay.
but I just wanted to, it just like in the other discussions, it's not what is used, it's what is imported. But we have
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So that would be a good assumption to write down. So ideally, it would be the lubricants that are being used. But if the assumption is that those that are imported is what will be used for that year, then you can make that assumption. I think that's the same assumption that was used in the previous report, which is very common when it might be difficult to track how much is actually used by the end user. But that is fine. And then for bitumen, that is perfect. As long as there are not other producers of bitumen that you're excluding, I think that state oil should cover most of it, unless you have other sources as well.
It would be just state oil, I think.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, perfect. Oh, well, then this sector will be very easy, and I will say that it will be very short. Well, since we're on this page with activities within IPPU sector, how about lime production? This it doesn't
No,
say.
we
Mhm.
don't have lime production. I mean, it's just specifically on the lime, right?
Yes.
Suriname does not, correct me, guys, or others who are here, but as far as I know, we don't produce or we don't have lime production, but maybe someone else in this group knows more.
Okay.
No, as far as I know, we don't have that, but maybe we had that, but as far as I know now we don't have that. I don't think so.
Okay. So then, sure. So maybe it's possible that you had that and it was included from the previous years. But maybe going forward, that's not an area to consider. So no problem. I think it's just a matter of confirming if this activity still exists. Uh, it said here that you may also have had alumina refining as well. Um,
Yes, we did have that, but in 2016 it stopped. But
okay,
until 2016 we have data. But after that, the
okay,
company went away.
okay. So then what would be important that's not indicated in your last inventory would be maybe the inclusion of the aluminum industry to report up to 2016, like you said,
The production, yeah.
for production. And then same for lime up to, I don't know when it started
Oh,
and ended, but
lime, we have nothing. We don't have anything for lime. So lime would not be. I think what they use is probably they use the aluminum data because it was from 2000 to 2017. So there would be a lot of aluminum data. But for data after 2017, we might have nothing for this part. But
okay.
for sure, we did not have any lime data, even years before.
Okay. Yeah, so this would be a good place to, I mean, this is where maybe I have a question because it says, because this was considered a key category. So unless there was lime production as a result of winding down from alumina refining activities, I'm not exactly sure how the two correlate, but yeah, this says
Um,
here this says here that it was included and it's a key category. So it'd be good to investigate the source of this information, whether it was data that was used for aluminum that was I'm not so sure the correlation, but it's just something good to check with
Yes,
the data
definitely.
with the
We
data
will
provided.
ask the consultant who worked on this because we
Sure.
have no clue what he is referring to.
Yeah, sure. I'm
yeah,
sure.
same here.
Okay.
No, but my
It's
question, Brittany, is that
mhm.
the estimates were from 2000 to 2017. So you would have figures, even if if they figured out how you could get lime production from the aluminum industry. But after 2016, what do you have for this area? Because no aluminum was produced, so nothing in direct link with lime.
Mhm.
What could, because what would be the key category of carbon dioxide then for us from 17 until I don't know until which year we have to report now. Just figuring out if there's something else we could add that could produce CO2.
Yeah.
Because
Uh
before that, mining was producing a lot. Aluminum mining was producing a lot of CO2.
mhm.
But after 2016, now it's mostly the gold mining that is producing. So
Okay.
just wondering, just
Okay.
something to
So
think about. Something to think about.
sure. Sure. So my response to that is if once the activity is no longer occurring, you can report not occurring. NO, you put the notation key as not occurring from
Okay.
2017 to 2023. I think is the
Okay.
year that you report. But once the activity existed, you should report the years that you had this activity up to 2016, and after that you can put not occurring, not NO.
Clear. Thanks.
Okay, great. Well, great question. Okay. So this is actually the data um, that was used in your last inventory for these four subcategories. So this might be a good place to start the question. Um, as you can see here, I see now here for line production from 2016 and 2017, it was put here NO for not occurring. So it does look like this perhaps was linked to the aluminum
Yeah.
industry, right? Um, so it would just be good to investigate what these figures are. Probably when you look at the environmental statistics or wherever this was from, you could see if it's from the aluminum industry. Lubricant use, asphalt. I can see here this was only from 2016 and 2017. So
Yeah.
just to,
Yeah, I'm wondering why they don't have data from before, because there is data. And also, I'm wondering what the 0.3.1 is in the food and beverage. German, do you know what? Oh yeah, we need to talk to the consultants first, but why does it have the same number in the food and beverage industry? We need to ask the consultant what they did. But there
So,
is data,
mm,
so there's data for asphalt for more years. So what does NE stand for again, Brittany?
not estimated means that the activity is happening, but it wasn't estimated for this
Oh,
inventory.
I think maybe I wasn't collecting it before in my publication. Maybe that's why. But state all should have it. Should have had it. But okay, go ahead, Jeremy.
Okay. German, you had something?
no, no, I was just going to say that the IPPU sector, um, what's the word? Mostly the food and beverages, the smaller companies. Those um those are the things we need help with because we don't quite get the industrial processes, so the processes of the different companies. So we to identify the activity data. For example, if they're producing beverages, what is the activity data? If they're producing something else, what is the activity data? Because all of those industries or companies have different processes. So this was the main question I had. So I'm wondering if you could give us some guidance because since Anjali asked the question, so I thought maybe I can ask it right away.
Okay, sure. So we will definitely in a few slides, we'll take a look at more at the food and beverage industry when we go into that specific sector. But good, I'll I'll take that into consideration, German, to explain what the source of activity data is. And usually it's from the production, right? So the production of in this case, I believe this would be from the brewery, the yearly production, and then it it's multiplied by the activity, the emission factor for that specific industry. But we'll take a look at that in a few other slides. And I'd just like to say welcome. I see we have another colleague that's joined us. Ria, welcome.
Yes, hi, Brittany. It's good to see you again after such
Yeah.
a long time.
Yeah.
And hi, everyone. Sorry for coming in late. I had some other things to do. But again, thank you, Yvette, for the invitation to join this meeting.
Yes, Ria. Good morning, all. Thank you for joining. I know I was late with the invite, but I was glad that you were able to make time to join us. So don't bother about that you're late. Just try to follow and If there are any questions, just ask them, and Brittany will respond. And if you can respond on some of the questions, since you were the lead author for the greenhouse gas inventory, you can also provide us with the necessary information. That is, if you can, because I do realize that most of that the sectors were done by other persons like the experts. But if you are able to just provide us with more information, it will be good. But thank you
Um,
for joining us. And thank you, Anjali, once again.
yeah, so thanks, Yvette. Yeah, I will try. If there are any questions, I will certainly try to answer them. But I have to say that, I have to do a deep dive into my memory because it was, I think, more something like 5 years ago that we did this exercise. So yeah, but certainly I will try to answer any questions that come up. Thank you.
Okay. Great. That's good. So where you joined us, Ria, is that we're looking at the activity data and the different sectors from the inventory in the last inventory in the third national communication. And one of the questions was on line production. Just if you recall, these line production figures, were they as a result of the aluminum industry, or was this from production of quicklime? So if you can't answer now, it's just to put it out there, since you joined just after we asked that question, so you can think about it.
Yeah, so as far as I can recall, the lime production is coming from the aluminum industry. Um, yeah, but of course, I have to get into the documents again to see what the sources are. But I believe it is from the aluminum industry.
Okay. Okay, well that's the first question, but that's good. So that's a good starting point for the next inventory, and maybe uh perhaps there could be consideration whether it's actually lime production from the combustion of limestone, if this activity is occurring, or if it's from aluminum refining, then perhaps it could be covered under, covered under aluminum production or aluminum refining in the and using that relevant emission factor. But we'll take a look at that as well. Okay, and just a little bit of background on the IPP sector. I know most of you are aware of all the sectors by now, but generally the IPP sector is considered to be less significant compared to the energy and AFLU sectors, and this is specifically for non-Annex 1 countries or developing country parties, whereby situation varies from country to country. The level of industrialization is usually less significant than other industries. And so IPP sources may become significant in the future as developing countries and economies and industries grow. And also, where it has usually more impact is with the F gases or the fluorinated gases. So with the use of refrigerants uh, and air conditioning, etc., in developing countries. So F gases is usually one of the largest contributors to IPPU emissions and have a high influence on total estimates, which I don't think was in your last inventory, but it's something to be considered for the next one. And in this sector, IPPU emissions is important. It's important to find opportunities for greenhouse gas abatement, and usually this is because these emissions are linked to certain industries where you can identify perhaps some of the high emission sectors and make changes to them. And you know what the source is, so you can make changes to them more readily. And so, of course, IPPU is broken into two sections: industrial processes and product use. So industrial processes are those that are whereby you have chemical or physical transformation of materials. So this, for example, in many of the chemical production of different chemicals and acids, etc., ammonia, etc., those types of compounds, you have the chemical transformation of a material that then releases different greenhouse gases. For example, in this case, nitric acid production, you'll have a release of the GHG, N2O, and also water. And then you can also have the physical transformation of certain compounds. So in this case, this is limestone. And then when you add heat, that physical transformation then breaks limestone into lime or quicklime here, CaO, and CO2. And so you have the production and the release of that greenhouse gas. And so that's on the industrial processes side. And there are various others, but there's also the product use side. And so this is where GHGs are used in products such as refrigerators, foams, and aerosols. And just to note that there can be significant time between the manufacture of this product and the release of these greenhouse gases. So this can vary depending on the type of compound. So for aerosol cans can vary from weeks to several decades in more rigid foams. Yes, I see a hand up, Anjali.
Yes, for the F gases, is there a specific list of items that produce these gases? So like fridges, air condition, are there any specific items which I can try to, again, it will just be the data from the imports, but I could at least try and see if I could get the information of the amount of imports of these products. But I'm
Product.
wondering if it's just fridges or air cools, or are there more items on the list?
Yeah, there are definitely more items, and there's actually a list of the actual gases. So
Okay.
so this you might be able to it's possible it might be on the list on the import sheet and the importation sheet when it's
Okay.
coming with the type of compound. So it'll be all of the various types of refrigerants, whether it's for home air conditioning or mobile for vehicles, for example, or there are different compounds. Also some from electrical equipment, fire extinguishers, and other foam and aerosols in those ways. But in a few slides, I'll show a list of all of the different
Okay, thanks. Okay.
all of the different the different HFCs, the F gases, I should say. Okay. And like we did with all the other sectors, just to make some distinguishment between what is not under the IPPU sector, which is often confused with other sectors, is when you have emissions from fuel combustion in the industrial sector for energy purposes. For example, like in the cement production industry, if you have emissions for combustion for energy purposes to capture and to use, that falls under the energy sector. And then, for example, in oil and gas industry, although it falls under an industry where you have fugitive emissions, those that escape as a result of refining or exploration, transportation, that also falls under the energy sector. And in the case where you have solvents, which is usually the production of solvents, would fall under the IPPU sector, where you have incineration of solvents or other industrially produced products without energy recovery. It would fall under the waste sector. And I see we have a hand, German.
Yes, kind of maybe a stupid question or obvious answer, but I'm just thinking the fugitive emissions. Um, how do the producers or the companies gather such data? I mean, when they are exploring or maybe the flaring or venting data, how can they gather such data? How do they know how much gas, how much CO2 or another gas is emitted? I'm
Yeah,
just thinking.
yeah, it's a tough one, and probably best from like from someone from your state oil company or so. From my understanding, it's they should have an understanding of the mass balance of all of the gas that they're flaring, what at what point it's starting, and then at the point that it's flaring, they capture and they know how much is being flared, and then there would be if there is a loss, within that within the total equation or from the start to the end, then they would know how much is being lost. And same for example, transportation lines. It doesn't have to be just gas. Um, Usually, if you have, even if you're transporting fuel, or if you're transporting LNG, for example, along pipelines, you should know how much you're starting with, and then they measure how much is when they're receiving it or at the end point, and then whatever is the difference between those two, they would see there is a loss, whether there's a loss by venting, or if there's a loss by escape through somewhere through the transportation, through the pipelines, etc. Um, this is probably the least sophisticated way of explaining that process, but without all of the industry terms. But that's my understanding of it. They know the start, they know the end, and so when they measure what the loss is, that is considered fugitive, if it hasn't gone anywhere else intentional. Okay, so I got a thumbs up or something. Okay. So generally in those facilities, in this oil refineries and oil production facilities, there's a lot of monitoring systems. So it should usually be everything is highly monitored, so they should be able to capture beginning, end, and what losses are occurring. And also similar, like if you think about it, like the electricity companies, the power companies, they know exactly what losses they're experiencing, what from energy production as well, because everything is highly monitored, or should be. A great question. Okay. Now, this is just another example of to differentiate between the IPPU versus the energy sector. So just to quickly give you this example, combustion emissions from fuels that are obtained from the feedstock for an IPPU process will normally be allocated to the source category in which the process occurs. So if the feedstock of the industrial process. For example, if it's lime production, the feedstock would be the limestone, right? If this is a result, this would be a result of the industrial process. So these source categories are normally fall within the IPPU categories under two. However, if the derived fuels are transferred for combustion in another source category, so if you're using that fuel to feedstock the start of the process, but it's then transferred to go to another source category, then it should be reported under wherever it's reported under the energy sector. Yeah, and this is an example here for steel production. I know you don't have iron and steel industry there, but the gas is combusted within the iron and steel industry, whether it's for heating the blast air, the site power needs for metal finishing operations. This is reported under the IPPU source for steel and iron and steel. But however, if part of the gas is delivered to a nearby brickworks for heat production, for example, then this would go under energy production, then reported under one of the different subcategories, right? One of the different commercial or uh, industrial energy source subcategories under the energy sector. I don't think a lot of this is happening, but this is a good distinguishment for understanding the sector. Okay. Now, because we're here, I wanted to maybe just do a quick reassessment of what are the actual activities that are happening in country in Suriname in the IPP sector. Definitely here, you have lubricants here up above for well, maybe let's start with in order, right? In the mineral industry, 2A. There's no cement production, right?
No, no,
No, no lime production exactly.
no,
Okay.
no
Uh,
glass,
no glass, no okay.
ceramics.
How about chemicals? I don't think there's any chemical industry, right?
Nope.
Different acids, okay. And 2C metal industry, you have aluminum,
We don't have anymore.
had, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe we
And
take a
gold does not belong in this list, right? Gold.
yeah, that's a very good question.
Because we have a
Um
lot of that.
you have gold, so maybe that would fall under 2C7 under other. I'm not sure. I would have to. This is where I would have to investigate for myself what would be potentially be the emissions there because this is gold production. This is just for exploration and it's mining, right?
Yes, it's mining.
This is mining. Um,
Because
yeah.
gold is one of our big economies, one of the big part of our economy. Gold
Yeah,
and crude oil. So
gold and
check
crude
if
oil.
check if it belongs somewhere in other or something.
Yeah, I would believe that it belongs here in metal industry. I would believe because it's not it's you use a lot of energy and like explosives, etc. So you have a lot of
Yeah.
energy use, similar like you would for crude for exploration, for example. But I believe that it would fall under somewhere under other. We would just need to investigate what are the appropriate emission factors to use. But okay, so
Another
let's.
que-
Mhm.
Another question. Besides using a lot of explosions to extract oil, we're using a lot of chemicals such as um, caustic. Ano ka na ba mo?
Caustic soda.
Mercury. We're
Mercury.
using mercury and what is that is quick talk, guys. Mercury and
Yeah, mercury is quick.
what fabric I am gold wear? Di ka pala ka?
Cyanida.
Cyanide.
Cyanida,
Cyanide, yeah, cyanide. So
Cyanide.
those
cyanide.
Okay.
two,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we're using a lot of cyanide and mercury,
But but
but
Anjali,
it doesn't. Mhm.
I'm not sure the Chinese are also using something, and that
It's
is
lacan.
still in research. I think what the impact of that
That is
there is on the environment. But
on
something
infrastructure.
called Jing Sao. I'm not sure
Yeah, I've
if
heard
that's
of
the
it.
English name.
So we have to check where that if that belongs here or some other area.
Okay. Yeah, I would believe that it belongs it would belong here under other, because there could be various others.
Okay.
Um, yeah, but okay, I'll do a little bit more investigation on that one. This is if
Yes,
this is a
please.
big if this is a big industry, then we should see where it falls. Ria?
Yeah, thank you, Brittany. So, just coming back to what Anjali said about the gold industry. So I do recall that the fossil fuel burning within the gold industry was accounted under the energy sector. So what would we, what kind of emission would we account under the IPPU sector if we include gold in this sector? Uh, just to be sure that we are not double counting.
Mm-hmm. 1 second. Okay, so you're saying um the fossil fuels that was used
Yeah,
in
within the
the
gold sector, that's a lot. We that was included in the energy sector
okay, as a
for the gold.
subcategory, I imagine, right?
Yes,
That's
yeah,
okay.
that was included in the energy sector under extractive industries, um,
Okay.
manufacturing industries, I think that is called.
Mm-hmm.
Um, So if we include the gold activities under the IPPU sector, so I was thinking what processes would be included within this sector, in terms of what emissions?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. Um, I'm not sure, to be honest. This is something that
Mhm.
I need to take a look at, whether
Yeah.
if it's actually like a chemical or a physical process in the gold
Hmm.
industry, because that is what the IPPU emissions are coming from, whether it's from like a chemical reaction, like for example for iron and steel, heat up the iron and then you produce different gases are
Yeah.
produced, and like same for aluminum, for example. But I don't know if that's the case for gold, because it's you're not I don't know, you're using different chemical, like you're using you use mercury and some other
Yes.
chemical to like kind of to refine the gold to get the pure gold, right? um,
Yes.
but I'm not sure if there's like greenhouse gases produced as
Hmm.
a result of that chemical interaction. More
Exactly.
probably, but I'm not sure. Maybe if it was, it would be included in this list directly, but
Yeah. And perhaps I'm just thinking maybe we should also look at other, inventories in countries, gold mining countries,
mhm,
such as, our neighbor Guyana
sure.
and also other countries in Africa, what they are actually doing, for the gold sector, how they include it within the whole inventory. Um, we might
Yeah.
learn something about that. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. This is also an area that I can increase my own
Mm-hmm.
capacity in. So yeah, let me yeah, I'll put a pin in that
Mm-hmm.
to know that this is a big industry for Suriname, and it's
Yeah.
good that it's already included at least the energy component of the industry in
Yeah.
the manufacturing use under the
Yes.
subcategory. So that's good that it's accounted there. But
I do
like,
have to note we did include it, the amount of fossil fuels that are used within the gold sector. But the thing is, we don't have I know I can recall we don't have the exact data, and that was also the case for the second national communication, because within the gold mining sector, there's a lot of smuggling ongoing, also in for fossil fuels, not only for mercury and other elements, but also for fossil fuels. So it's just the kind of official numbers that we use, but we're pretty sure that it should be much more.
okay, yeah, that's common in
Yeah.
these type of metal industries and mining in general.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's hard to account for, but it's something that you can put like qualitatively. You write a note like that in
Yes.
the report to just for transparency. But unless you know, it's difficult to really know more or less how much the loss is. But yeah, it's common. Also, like for fuel at the border points, right? You
Mhm.
never really know,
No,
that there's some
exactly.
people are getting fuel and going to a different country, or getting fuel from it. It's difficult to track, but you can
Exactly.
include it, at least write it as a qualitative statement in the report,
Mhm.
and it's just the best that could be done until you have more information, if you ever get more information.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you.
So I'll take a look at other countries' reports and other information on the gold sector. From what I'm seeing here briefly, I don't see that there's like a chemical process that, apart from the energy component of it, that's producing emissions. Um, so, but we'll come back to that, just in case there's something else that's missing. Okay, so we have here, okay, we said gold already, um, aluminum. Let's go to 2D, non-energy use, lubricants. Definitely, that was included from your imports. Are there any paraffins, perhaps different paraffins that are imported as well? Sometimes you can see these on the roster of imports at customs. So this is just something to take consideration of.
I need
Um,
I need to check if we have that, because I didn't consider, I didn't know I had to. So I need to check in the customs data.
okay. Yeah, it would be good to check, because usually there are some, whether it's industrial or some commercial, I should say, paraffin use. Usually you find it in the same place that you find importation of lubricants. Okay, I know you don't have electronics industries. Okay, you have here definitely ODS substitutes, ozone depleting substitutes. So you have for 2F for sure, for refrigeration and air conditioning, um, maybe some foams and some fire protection. Yes, Angelique, go ahead.
I think the National Environment Institute is already collecting this, or at least they used to collect data on ODS. I have to
Mhm.
ask Donovan if they are still collecting this. So this would probably also be covered, the ODS. But I
Okay,
don't know
great.
if we have updated data.
Okay, so this is, I imagine this is, yeah, probably whoever is responsible for your ozone unit, or who's responsible for the Kigali amendment, etc. Yes, Yvette.
It was just a question for Anjali, because I know that the National Environment Authority, previously NIMOS, has a ozone unit and is indeed responsible for collecting data when it comes to ODS. But I have a feeling that over the last couple of years that has not been done.
Nope.
So I was wondering, do they share the data with you, Anjali?
Yes, they share the data with me, but for I think for the past 3 or 4 years, they didn't have data. But I have data from since 2000s or something. So I do have a lot of data, but I don't know what happened the past few years. I don't know if the person that was working there, I don't know what happened. So I have to check
I
and
know
see.
that the ocean officer was the acting director,
Mr. Neelam.
but yeah, but I think somebody else should have taken over the responsibility. So that's why I'm wondering. I thought that you were the one maybe assisting
No,
or also helping out with that. But as yeah, it seems that it's just only someone from the enemy who is dealing with that. Something that we need to look at if maybe we can also have a backup
yeah.
with
So
you
that is why
to
I was asking
yeah.
Brittany, like I think they were getting the data strict from customs. They had a relationship or something
Yeah,
with customs.
they need
But
to report to the
yeah,
Montreal protocol. So, but I'm not sure what the reporting status is
this is
to the protocol.
yeah. So that's why I want to ask Donovan, what are they actually collecting? So even if they're doing the calculations, I can at least have information on these
Yeah,
items that are here.
exactly.
At least the import data. I could put it in the report annually. That's not an issue. So, but I need to contact Donovan and check and see who is now responsible. Are they gonna pick it up again? So,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. Okay, good. So that looks like one data gap that will be filled because I do see that I do realize that it wasn't included in your last inventory. So it wasn't included, ODS weren't included. So definitely could be a nice gap filling exercise to uh, have this data from, from 2000 possibly to present. Okay. So I had to go back there. Check. And then, okay, so refrigeration and probably also in um, the National Environment Authority or whoever you'll be checking with to see if they have information on the other agents like fire protection and other aerosols. Uh, More than likely, they will definitely have for refrigeration and the air conditioning, but usually if they're reporting to the Montreal Protocol, they would have for these other folks and aerosols. If not, at minimum, it should also be in the customs report for what's imported. And then lastly, uh, okay, I don't think you have here anything under 2G, under any under manufacture processes for electrical equipment, medical equipment, etc. But you do have under 2H for food and beverage, right? So you have here your breweries were included in your last inventory. And we won't go through this, but this is just another representation uh, of the different subcategories within the different IPPU uh, subcategories. Anjali?
I have a question for Ria. Ria, did you guys get data from Beer Brewery? Because it's hard for me to get data from them. Were you able to get anything from them? And who was the focal point?
So I managed to get an Excel sheets from the expert on my computer. Let's see. So about the food and beverages, the only data that he got was from Fernandez. He did reach out to Parbo and SAB, that are the alcoholic beverages industry, but no data was received. So the only data
Oh,
that he got was
goodness.
from Fernandez.
Okay, so I would have to try to contact these three again and see.
Mm-hmm.
I think what should happen, Ifeta, is that I should not just send the letter and they don't understand why the letter is sent, why the data request letter is sent. They should have a meeting with us or the director of ROM to understand why we're asking them this data, because they don't reply because they're like, why are you asking me this data? But we see how important the private sector also is to provide data.
Yeah.
Something to think about because
We
they
we
don't know.
did have the last cycle for the BTR when we requested data. We did manage to receive additional question. I think Shireen can confirm that or can say something about it. But I think it was Parbu Beer that sent us questions regarding why the data was needed and what type of data was needed. But in the end, we end up, I think we did not receive um, the necessary data that was needed. Um, Whereas when we spoke to the colleagues from or the people of Fernandez, because we also reached out to them and they were able to send us some information, but they also requested for an in-person meeting. So we did had a meeting with them and we could explain what type of data was needed. In some of the, I think so they had some questions in where we were not sure um the data requested if it needed to be requested from them. That was also one of the discussions that we had. But they were willing because we were able to explain to them why it was necessary. And I think they shared data. German of Shirin can testify to that. I'm not really sure, but I know from Fernandez, but Parbo beer we did not receive data that was needed.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yes, we receive data from Parbo Beer in environmental data.
Yes, but what I can add maybe is when we had the meeting with Fernandez, for example, um, we I couldn't really tell them what activity data we need from them because you need to understand where the gases are, the sources of emissions, right? So you need to maybe understand the processes, what they use, what the chemical reactions are. So those things, I'm not familiar with all the processes, not from the beverage, not from the food, not from the other sectors as well, the other companies. So that's why we have a hard time getting the IPPU sector done. When we say we mention to the persons we need activity data or we need data on this, um, if they don't understand it, we also can't really explain it because we don't know the processes within the companies that where the emissions are occurring. So the chemical processes. So that's where we have some gap in understanding, and we need some guidance. So from I'm not sure if Ria can help us or Brittany can give us some tips in this regard.
German, um, I do recall that when we had a meeting with Fernandez, um, we did requested them to provide information on the processes taking place within the company. And I think there was something about we requested they explain how much sugar they use, how much. So it was more like the components of um how do you call it? The the industrial process that is taking place there. So we could not really answer the questions because we also wanted more information but from them. But I think it had something to do with what are they using during the process that can cause emission?
Yes, so I'm just that's what I mean. So the chemical reactions, if it's a chemical industry or some reaction, so that's what I meant. Um,
Okay.
we don't really understand the processes within the company, so we can't really answer questions if they have question in that regard, because I think, I'm not sure, but Brittany and Ria can help us out. I think you need to understand the processes, where the sources of emissions are, or what the sources are, before you can identify the activity data. So that's where we are missing
Mm.
knowledge.
Maybe okay, this has been good. And while you've been talking, I've been also looking up, pulling up some of the activity data collection sheets and templates that could help you understand a little bit of the definition of the category or of the industry, whether it's aluminum or um, food and beverage, etc. And then exactly what is the minimum activity data required to ask from each of these industries. So maybe we take a shift from this presentation, since we're on this topic, to let me just share my screen. Tell me if this is helpful to you. Okay, so these are the activity data sheets that I have shared with you as well before. I can always share them again. This is the one for IPPU. You don't have minerals. And if you did have lime, for example, it would be mass of lime produced. You don't have chemicals. You have metals, right? You have your metal industry for aluminum. So here, this is 2C3. Just confirming if you can see my screen, okay?
Yes, we see it.
Okay, super.
Yes.
So 2C3, and so this means the primary aluminum production only. I'm not very familiar with your aluminum industry, but if it's the primary aluminum production, so this would be what you would ask from your industry, your industrial stakeholders. What's the mass of the aluminum produced using pre-bake technology? Um, and of course, this is where the industry specific knowledge is. Like, for example, I am not a aluminum industry specialist. So, but probably those who are working in this industry will know what type of technology that they're using. This pre-bake technology, what they use to heat up the, the metal for purifying the aluminum, and then also the mass of aluminum produced using using this specific process, and for all of the years that they have available. So I quite like these activity data sheets because it tells you exactly what it is that you need to request. And so the mass can be in whatever they collected in their industry. So whether it's in grams or it's in tons, probably would be something like tons. And then if needed, then you can convert it later on. But I know that the IPCC software makes has tons as one of the options as well. Sectors. Okay, this is the same thing here. And this is where you would enter your data. Lubricants and waxes. So lubricants used in industrial and transportation, usually subdivided into motor oils and industrial oils and greases, etc. So this is a good description of what it is that you're asking for, or if you have this information already in the customs report. And then your lubricant consumption, and ideally in energy units, if not mass. and then consider what is use, right? So what is domestic production, which I don't think you have. Imports minus exports would be what you use. But in Suriname's case, what you're using is only imports. But I just like that it tells you exactly what you need to ask. You ask for total consumption, ideally in energy units. But if you don't have that, you can get mass, and then you can convert it to the energy units within the software. Same for paraffins. Yeah, okay, those two. And then for your F gases, now it gets a little bit more specific. For your ODS, so the two approaches would be, and I'm going ahead of myself because this is in the presentation, but you can also, I will also share this in the chat so that you know what you're looking for. But you can get from chemical sales consumption based on application, or you can do it based on equipment sales or imports and exports of equipment. Generally, this is the way that it's done. If you don't have, if you don't specifically monitor how much is being consumed, you at least know how much you are importing, which is assume how much you're using. And then you see, you know how much the quantity that you're using for for each of these types of agents. This one is very small. Yeah, but in the presentation, I'll show you all the list of the different HFCs used. But at least here it shows you what are the questions to ask. You have the description of what each of these are, what refrigeration and air conditioning means. These may include HFCs, PFCs, or other blends. So it's all of these blends that you'll be looking for in your customs reports, for example, and also your fire protection, etc. These are other ones like foams, open sill foams that are used, such as household furniture cushioning, mattresses, automotive seating. So it could get very, very specific. If it's helpful, I can put this in the chat. Sorry, I'm seeing that we had some stuff going on in the chat as well that I wasn't seeing. Okay, but we have some information on metric tons of the different ozone depleting substances. When we're looking at for the greenhouse gas inventory, it would be good to know which of the specific HFCs this is referring to. So this is total ODS. So maybe if you could get the background data to this to know what's the sum of each of the individual types of ODS that you'd be able to then enter individually, because each of the different substances have different emission factor, for example. But this is good. This means that this data is available at least until 2020. Maybe fuel oil, lubricants. Okay, so I see here you have lubricants in kilograms. That's good. You can use kilograms and then you can convert it to terajoules. So we have quite a bit of data. Okay, but before I go back to the presentation, are there any questions on the or maybe the usability of the activity data template that I just pulled up. German, do you think that it would be helpful for you?
Yes, I was just about to ask something. Regarding the food and beverage industry, do you have something on that as well?
Let me see. Hmm. Chemicals, metals. Yeah, this is. Let's see. Yeah, I don't actually, yeah, that's a good point. I don't see actually food and beverage in this sheet, but it's something that's missing. But generally for food and beverage, it would be production, right? So the production values of how much, what the volume it is of beer that's produced, or the volume of sugar that's produced, alcohol, etc. So it would be the production numbers that you would be asking each of the industries. And same for bread. I don't know if you have bread production there, but that's often a common one as well. How much flour is used for bread production, um, because there's a gaseous component when you're um, making bread. Some countries
Yeah,
do put bread.
yes. So that's the part where we are having some, what is the word, twijfel. We are not sure if we are on the right track because we don't really know what to ask, like how much flour is used, or how much of a certain product is used to make something, and what emissions are occurring. If we had that information, then we would still need the emission factor, and I'm not sure if those are also available and where I can find those.
Yes. Yeah, good question. So emission factors, I wouldn't worry about. They are always available in the IPCC guidelines. Um, Let me see if I have some of them here. But let me take you through the sector, the different subcategories one at a time, because I also have uh, linked the sections in the IPCC guidelines where you find the emission factors. You can see my screen. Okay, we went through this. I think this is all very clear. The different gases that are involved in this sector, CO2, all of your fluorinated gases, etc. And all of those gases that are controlled by the Montreal Protocol, that would be under your ODS, etc. I had mineral industry included because I saw you had lime production. But it might be that you don't have you don't actually have lime lime production industry from use from the transformation of limestone into quicklime, for example, or into lime, usable lime. Usually this is for adding to soil, so I will skip on this. But here is the this is what you would need usually, how much lime is produced, the mass of the lime that's produced. And as you can see here, this is tons of lime, and these are the emission factors. Okay. These are just some cross-cutting issues. I know where we've been discussing the completeness of your IPPU sector all morning throughout the session, and I know you have some completeness issues to fill in the gaps. So certain industries, certain of the breweries and alcohol industries to ensure that all plants are included or all of the private sector companies are included. This is referring to cement, so we're not talking about cement here. But we're working on cement. So I will skip on this because I originally had this included, noting that you had lime. But if this industry, I understand, is not occurring, so we will skip on this. We don't have limestone mining and crushing and creating of lime powder. These were just some of the potential sources. Okay, so I included here, I went to find aluminum production industry. So this is where you have the tier one methodology for aluminum production uses a technology-based default emissions. And so this is where you have this pre-bake, center work pre-bake type of technology, or these are the three different types of main technologies. And these would be the emission factors. And as you saw in the data collection sheet, what you're asking them for is how many tons of kilograms or tons of aluminum are being produced. And then you can ask them what type of production technology that they're using. This might be something that is you can research, or maybe it's on the company website, or they can respond and tell you exactly what it is. Maybe some of the technologies changed year to year. Unlikely, but it is. So these are the emission factors for the different types of technology. So that's why I say don't worry about emission factors. You will more than likely always find them in the IPCC guidelines, and you can always just enter in Google emission factor for aluminum, and it will take you more or less to the correct chapter of the IPCC guidelines. That's just a trick to find what you're looking for quickly. Or if you're using the IPCC software, then it will have the drop down so that you can find the associated emission factor. You just need to know what type of technology is the type of technology in the industry in your country. Okay, so we have non-energy products from fuel use. So this is our lubricants, waxes, greases, etc. Paraffins. So these are GHG emissions from the non-energy products. So they're not being used for combustion for energy purposes. They're not being used as a feedstock or reducing agent, and not being incinerated. So this is just for basically lubricating purposes, but they do have associated emissions. So they have both direct carbon dioxide emissions and also NMVOCs. So these are full NMVOCs. VOCs are volatile organic compounds, as well as CO is carbon monoxide emissions, which eventually oxidize to CO2. So even though they may not be converted directly to a greenhouse gas, they do have these precursors which eventually oxidize into CO2. So which is why it's very important to include. And also here is where you have your asphalt production, right? This is where you can use your bitumen values. So these are just some potential areas where you may have double counting or emissions. So this category includes only the first use, where lubricants are burned without energy recovery. Emissions are reported in the waste sector and with energy recovery in the energy sector. I'm not sure if there's any type of energy capture. I doubt it. It's not, if these are used for energy purposes. However, likely the main application of these lubricants is for lubrication in your different engines and your four-stroke engines. This is where it falls into the IPPU sector. And when it's mixed into when it's mixed with motor oil in two-stroke engines, it's reported under road transport. So this is where potentially you might have some emissions, because I don't know if this is being included for your two-stroke engines. These are for your motorcycles, etc., where it's mixed with oil. If it's not captured here, it will all be captured under the IPPU sector, but perhaps some of it would be covered or should be covered under the road transport sector. But if you don't know how much is being used for your two-stroke engines, then it would be difficult to say. But I think it's fine. I think if once you make the assumption that all your lubricants that you're imported are being used for lubrication, and if you say you estimate that perhaps a small percentage or X percentage is going is being mixed with other motor oils, you can include that. But if you don't have that information, you just state the assumption that you're sure of. Okay, and then this is just to give you an idea of the basic tier 1 methodology, which means whereby you have your CO2 emissions equal the consumption. So the consumption in mass times CC, and then times the oxidized factor, the ODU factor, and then multiplied by this chemical weight of carbon dioxide, which is 44 over 12, if you recall your chemistry classes. And so these are the different oxidized factors for each of these different types of lubricants. So this will tell you that 20% of lubricating oil will be oxidized. So that's why it's important here. Okay. Oh, and CC is the carbon content. And these you would find in the rest of the IPCC guidance. Let me see if it's not on the next slide, but it would be in the drop down of the IPCC software, and it would be within the IPCC guidance, probably in the same place that you're finding these ODU factors. And we went through some of this already. What is and what is not covered under IPPU. So we know that IPPU is everything that's used for the production of one of these these either chemical or metal products or industrial products or food and beverage products. And generally, if you're using if the combustion emissions are included in the energy and process, if combustion emissions are included in the energy and process in the IPPU sector, but for the chemical and metal industry, some of the combustion emissions are reported in the IPPU. So it could be a little bit confusing, but generally where you have emissions that are used as the start for for that particular industry, it would fall under energy. And then those that are used for the process would be under IPPU. We didn't go into agriculture because this is, for example, you have different industrial industries for urea production or ammonia production. It's separated when you have for the use in the agriculture process versus the production of the actual fertilizer or the urea, ammonia, etc., and limestone. Okay. And these are the different category codes for fluorinated substances, for ozone depleting substances, for refrigeration, air conditioning, etc. So you have actual emissions versus potential emissions. This is one of the principles that are used in this ODS, where you may have delayed emissions because from the time that you buy or purchase, or that the refrigerant, for example, is imported in the country, there's delayed emissions from when it's discharged, right? So you may have these emissions that are discharged over a certain period of time. And also because of the nature of these types of gases, it's considered that the total amount of substances contained in the existing equipment are not yet released to the atmosphere. So it takes a certain amount of time for everything to be released. So we won't go too much into the methodology, but that's why it's important to know when certain when certain of these refrigerants or certain of these fluorinated substitutes are introduced into the country versus when they're used, actually used. Yes, and it has many applications. So this would be good to cross-check within your customs list of data. Yeah, so just to give just an overview of how emissions are accounted for ODS. So the 2006 guidelines provides methods for estimating actual emissions of ODS substances, in contrast to potential emissions approach, which was under the previous guidelines. So this takes into account the time lag between consumption of the ODS and then their emissions. The potential emissions would then be the approach that assumes that all emissions from an activity occur in the current year, ignoring the fact that they will occur over many years. Thus, estimates become very inaccurate. And as we know, the potential emissions is probably where we're making the assumptions, right? So based on all of the imports, we're making the assumption that those ODS that are imported for this year would be used over this year, although technically they have a discharge of a longer lifetime. So if you try to get more specific information on the data that you have, and this might be something that the ozone unit or the National Environmental Authority may have been collecting before time, if they're responsible for reporting to the Montreal Protocol. These are some of the assumptions that they would have, right? Equipment servicing starts 3 years before equipment installation. That there's an average equipment lifetime of 15 years, for example, and that there's a complete transition to a new refrigerant takes about 10 years. So these are just some of the assumptions. And then some of the data that you actually need, if it's available, is the sale of a specific refrigerant in the year to be reported, the year of the introduction of the refrigerant, if this is available. If not, there are some default emission, there are some default values that you can use that the IPCC guidelines provides, depending on the type of gas. It can tell you the year of introduction, but generally it's the year of introduction of that refrigerant in your country. Growth rate in sale of new equipment, this is not always available. And assumed percentage of new equipment exported and imported. And these are potentially some of the sources, but I think you've already identified where you could get this data from. Okay. I'm not noting that this wasn't this subcategory wasn't included in your last inventory. I imagine that you would be starting with tier 1 based on the data that you have available. So you would be using more than likely data on chemical sales by application. So assuming that the chemical sales or the refrigerant, all the different ODS sales or imports by application, and using the emission factors by application. You can do it to the most disaggregated level, so you can do it by the type of the different HFCs that are available. Okay. And with that, I think this is the end. We've covered all of the different subcategories that were included in your inventory. Focusing mainly on what's the data that you need. We didn't go a whole detail into all of the different estimation techniques, for example, because that will be done at a later date. But yeah, at this point, do you have any questions or any other questions?
I still have a question regarding the food and beverage. If you have information on what we can ask
Yes.
as activity data, information to use as activity data.
Yes. Give me 1 second, German. I think that's actually in this. Should have this somewhere. Yes, I do. Apologies, it's not in the presentation. You're right. Okay, let me share the screen. This is, I think, I don't know, I must have had an oversight. I didn't include it in the actual presentation, but this is generally a small sector for food and beverage, food and drink. So this is, I just went to the IPCC guidelines and pulled this, but this is generally a result of the volatile organic carbons that are emitted during the production of alcoholic beverages, bread making, and other food products, which then also have a carbon dioxide emitting potential. So these estimates are based on total annual production of the particular food or manufacturing process. And so you should probably get these directly from the industry itself, unless you have some other type of, unless it's collected elsewhere. So this here, this here is looking at the alcoholic beverages. And so this is where I'm guided by usually when looking at a country to see if they have emissions in this sector, in this food and beverage. If you're producing any of these, then you can, and there's an associate emission factor, you can collect this data, and it would be generally this here is for the kilogram or the hectoliter of the beverage, right? So you can ask, usually you ask for the volume, right? You ask for this in volume. So you can ask for it in liter or you can ask for it in hectoliter. This here has the emissions, the emission factor are for each hectoliter. But if they just provide you by liters, I think you can make the conversion yourself. So you'd ask, what's the amount of beer in liters or hectoliters that were produced for each year? Same for spirits, for rum, for example. And perhaps you have an emission factor specific for this industry. You might not. I don't think they're worrying about emissions. But if not, you can use this emission factor here, 15 for all spirits, unspecified. So if you have a special type of spirit or alcohol that's being produced. Okay, and here's the other section for bread making and other food. So the NMVOCs are released during the heating of fats and oils and foodstuffs containing them in baking of cereals, flours, and beans. Anything that's producing, anything that has fermentation involved. Also in the drying of residues, right? So these here are some of the different food production processes that you can include. So there's meat, fish, and poultry. So if you have meat, fish, and poultry facilities, you can use that. So how much tons are being produced? So this here is what you'd be asking for. You'd be asking for tons of how much you have produced. Some countries have shrimp, for example. This you can also use in this area, fish, conch, other type of seafood, poultry. Sugar production. You may not have sugar production anymore. Bread. So
we do have margarine, a
okay,
company that makes butter.
interesting. Okay, good. So that's
Yeah.
one. That's one that maybe was not included before that could potentially
Oh.
be included.
And regarding the fish, what's very popular in Suriname is smoked fish and salted fish and dried shrimp. But to get that data would be very hard because it's done by very small,
Mhm.
little companies. But the margarine, we could maybe ask CIC. And animal feed, is that like you would import the materials and you would mix it here? Because we don't produce the components for the animal feeds, but we do import the components, and there are two big companies, Fitalo and LNB, or maybe there might be more, that mix the animal feed, specifically chicken feed. Is that
Okay.
something we should also try to collect?
Are they they're making it, mixing it, drying it, right? They're dehydrating it to make the animal feed, I imagine.
I don't know what is the process. I don't know German. I know they import the corn and the soybeans and stuff. It's imported.
Okay.
I
But
think they
Yeah,
just they just mix everything and
they
make
may mix
pellets.
it, yeah. They
and make
don't dry
pellets.
it.
Yeah.
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 Okay. Okay, so that's what I mean. If they're making pellets, they're probably drying it, making it like shelf stable. So yes, that would probably that would go under here. That would go under animal feed for pellets, different food. Yeah, pet feed, farm feed. Yeah,
Yeah. So
that
we
would
have
that would
more.
be one of them.
So we have more data to collect. Okay. Okay.
If it's available, at
Yeah.
least
We'll
if you're not,
try.
if you don't have all of it, you can just put it in your report that you have small sources, and that you will work on reporting it for the next time. So don't forget that you also have that option, especially
Yeah.
if it's very small. Then it's recommended, yes, to have a complete inventory, but if it takes too much resources to collect all of this information, um, it's you're putting less focus on your industries that have more emission impact. Um, so there's a balance that you can make, and as long as you report it transparently that you have these industries, but perhaps you need more time, or by the next inventory
Collect
you
it.
will collect it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I
Can I
just wanted
also?
to
Oh,
go ahead, German.
oh
German, go
yes.
ahead.
On poultry.
Hmm.
We don't hear you.
Your mic is off again.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Now we
Yes,
hear you.
now.
Oh, yes. It's also a subcategory on the agriculture. So how do you make the
Yeah.
segregation, which one you use where? Because you
No
have,
double
for example,
counting. Yeah.
meat. Yeah, meat production also under agriculture.
Yeah. That's yeah, this is a tricky one. Because that one, the agriculture emissions for poultry would be the emissions that they have from being alive and existing and excreting their feces going into the soils, for example. Um, so it's different. And at this stage, it would be once they're packaged, they're produced, they're being packaged. So they would have a much smaller emissions at this stage. Uh, Generally, this is like your
I think German, like what Brittany was saying, like the production of poultry or the fish catches that would be covered in agriculture. But like how we are drying our like smoked fish and dried fish is very popular here. Like a lot of people are eating that. And I know that the Ministry of Agriculture also collects the total amount, or at least from the companies that they know about, the total amount of processed fish. I have that data, either dried or fish, uh, either dried or smoked. So we could use that data. There's a difference in livestock, like you know,
it's
having
alive.
the
It's
chickens, selling them, slaughtering them, and processing them. Because, for instance, if you're going to smoke the fish, that will create a lot of CO2 because you're using wood and fire, for instance, right? So I think for the meat and fish, we could get data, but for the others, it might take some time, but we could always try.
yeah. But that's a very yeah, there's a very clear distinction. So this here,
Mm.
this food production processes is for as you can see here, it's for the cooking of vegetables and meat, so smoking process or cooking process, making it into
Mm.
a specific product. I'm not sure about just packaging. That I imagine is different because you have your livestock and then I imagine your poultry would be packaged, but I don't think there's a process that generates emissions from that apart from the emissions used in the packaging facility. So it might just be those that are um, like your colleague Anjali said, those that are dried, cooked, um, drying of pellets, for example, for animal feed. So once there's a byproduct, sorry, a byproduct of one of these that are transformed into another product. For example, maybe if you have poultry that's then transformed into some type of cooked food product, it would be under this sector, under this subcategory here.
Mm-hmm.
Brittany, sorry. The only data we have is the export of smoked, dried, and salted fish. But it's
Okay.
something. Now the production is much more because a lot of locals are also using it. But at least we have. I put a table here for you with the
Okay.
exported smoked, dried, and salted fish in 1,000 kilograms. And then it's more, but we have some
Mm-hmm.
data.
Okay,
We have
this is
some.
just for export. So maybe whatever is
Yeah,
the total
it's more.
production. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Mhm.
So the values here that would you'd need is annual total production.
Yeah.
Okay. Because in this case, it's not just consumption. It's not just consumption because once it's the production of the once it's produced in the country, the emissions are in the country. It's different than for example refrigerants or something where they're discharged in the other country that they're exported to. But yeah, I hope this helped a little bit more. I will. I'll also put this in within the presentation so that I can share with the rest of you so that you have on file. I know that some of you have to go. Some of you have can't come off the call, but yeah. If you have
Yes,
any
that
other
helped a
questions, let
lot.
me know.
That helped
Okay.
a lot. But I hope further down in the document, you have something for how do you say this? Coke production, for example, or other beverages. Yes, maybe something in that regard because we have some companies. We have the beer brewery producing beer. We have Fernandez Bottling Company producing Coke and some other beverages. We have some juice
Sabi.
companies. So, we do have some companies, so we do need to include this as well. So
Okay.
if I hope down in the list there's some information on that, so I can use that.
Yeah. There's no. Yeah, it's kind of tricky. So there's none on juice and soft drinks, for example, but there are emissions that you can use, and you'd have to investigate for other because they're smaller. Uh, there's smaller emissions, so there's not emission factors in the IPCC guidelines for all of these, for example, but they do have some source of emissions, although smaller than beer, for example, and alcohol, which have a lot more. But yeah,
I see
I
that.
will find.
If you don't find anything, don't worry. Maybe we will just leave it for this report, and maybe the next cycle, if we can see if we will be reporting those. Because if their emissions are very small, then maybe it's not necessary to do all that for those.
I'll look for it. I've looked for it before, but I'll take a look. I don't believe that it's one of the main ones that are in the list there. So that's already a signal to me that it doesn't have a big big emission potential. But yeah, any other questions that you have, feel free, you know where to find me. And yeah, thank you all for being so attentive in the session and all of the great questions. I think you're well underway for your IPPU sector to at least know where your data is.
Yes, that definitely. Thank you. Thanks to you because we were a little lost, but now it's a little clear with the
Clearer,
less,
yeah.
yeah, especially with the last document you shared, and I think we will be good on our way.
Let me
Thank
Thank you
you
so
just
very
much.
much, Brittany. Yeah.
no
Thank you,
problem.
Brittany.
I'll put in the chat right now the link to what I just put on my screen.
Brittany, one question. I'm not receiving anything. I'm not receiving the invitation and also the presentation. Is there something wrong with my email address?
No, nothing should be wrong. If you put your email in the chat again, I can make sure that it's added directly to the original invitation. Probably before you've been receiving a forward of the invitation from the colleagues there from the ministry, but I can also add you directly.
Yes. No,
Okay.
I'm receiving them from IFED, but I thought maybe you were also sending them, so that's why.
No, I have one main one because I don't always know who will be joining all of the sessions. So
Oh, okay.
they share, but I can if you I understand that you'd be joining. I think we only have two more sessions left.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can add you to all of them. What the next one is on Friday. The
Five,
next
yeah.
session
And if
Friday
it's
at the
possible, if you could send the previous presentation, so because I want to go through them again from the
yes,
other core meetings. Yes. Thank you so much.
definitely I'll do that.
Brandy, you can
Okay.
send it to us, the ministry itself, and then we can distribute it to the participants.
That
Super.
would be a good idea too, yeah.
Thanks, Shanine. I'll do that. I know I have a couple pending, so I'll get to that.
Okay,
Okay.
bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Right.
Have a
Bye
good day,
bye.
everyone.
Bye.